you say that you have 3 secrets of the world's top athletes to boost productivity and maintain work-life balance. Can you share them with us?
I'd love to. So I'll tell you what they are first, and then I'll dive into them into a little bit more detail. One is the power of tracking progress. 2, the power of time blocking. And 3, the power of team. The power of tracking progress. Athletes track their progress. You know this as an athlete, and they're so skilled at monitoring their progress so that they can get excellent results. They know where they're starting, and they have a plan to get to the finish line. And so in the same way, we've got to have that plan. I say to my clients, prior proper planning prevents poor performance. So we really need to know, have a real system in place of how we're tracking that progress. I teach a system called Russian Ratchet. It comes from Russian, who figured out that repetition alone is not what is going to create mastery. We need to focus on the quality of the output, the actual system that is going to generate us the greatest results. And so I work on that, and there's multiple ways. 9 specific ways that I use to track and monitor progress.
Can you give us an example?
It's so critical.
Can you give us an example of somebody that has done this, the tracking the progress?
The athletes at Cirque du Soleil that I've worked with, this is a system I've taught. If I've got business leaders that will come to me and say, hey, so I'll give you an example of, for example, like one of those ways. It's to add something new. So normally we're used to doing something. So one way is repetition. So we do something once, we repeat it the next time in the exact same way with no changes. That's repetition. We do that same thing over and over again, and we'll develop a level of proficiency. So another thing we can do is to add the intensity level. So when I was training as a dancer, one of the things that I would do is I would train with ankle weights. I put 20-pound ankle weights, practice my drills, my jumps with those ankle weights. So it would make it so much more difficult, but what would happen is that strength and that power that I generated meant that when I took the ankle weights off, I had a lightness in me. I had that power translated. So that's one example, and it's something that if you're an athlete and I'm working with you as an athlete, then I'll implement this system for you as part of your training. If you're in the business realm, this can translate in the business realm too, because we need to get great results at work. We need to be able to have that system of tracking and measuring our results, and there's actually a way that we can do that so that we're doing that to optimize our performance in the workplace too.
Right. I love the ankle weight analogy, and so that's really good. When you take them off, it's easier. And so, okay. Well, what's the second one? The second secret?
The second one is the power of time blocking.
Okay.
And this is really about we're talking about athletes having this sense of real purpose and vocation, knowing exactly what they need to accomplish that day. And there's been actually studies done on the difference between sort of the way athletes manage their time. And you might be able to relate to this a little bit, but it's like, in competition, you're probably spending 5% of your time in competition, 40% of your time training, and a lot of time actually resting, recuperating, the rest of the time resting, recuperating, making sure your muscles and your bones are regenerating so you can perform at that highest level. Well, for most of us in our working environments, we're sort of doing the opposite. We're spending 70% of our time competing, working at that really high level, constantly pushing ourselves. Mm-hmm. If we're lucky, we're spending 5% of our time sharpening our soul, training ourselves on how to, upgrading our skills so that we can do things better. And then that 25% that is left over, we use for rest and recuperation. We kind of wonder, why are we not getting the great results? And so it's really important to be able to manage our time. And so the power of time blocking is really making sure that we look at a sort of typical 8 hours in the day, how we maybe chunking it down to 2 hours at a time and picking out the most specific, what is that one thing you want to accomplish today? Or the 3 big things you want to accomplish today, and then allocating that time to getting that task done. So blocking out chunks of time for a singular task with no distractions. And if you have time left over, you can do the other maybe necessary but not as important tasks. But blocking out that time, and I say to people, we've got to block out time for our work and for our training, but we've also got to block time out for things like rest, for meditation or for, quiet time or spending time with our family or spending time with our spouse. It's so important to put it on the calendar because if we don't, life gets in the way.
Right, right. Well, there are a lot of people who, their jobs are very intense. I mean, they work a job for 8 hours or sometimes longer than that. They get very few breaks. And most of that time is very stressful. I mean, they are, trying to hit, goals and timelines and all that. I mean, how does a person like that do time blocking?
The interesting thing about time is that the more you have time to accomplish tasks, the more longer it will take. And so actually allocating, I've got 45 minutes, I've got an hour and a half to complete this task, and it has to get done because then you're on to the next task. It means your brain just is sort of forced to recalibrate how you're going to work that time. And of course, different tasks, demand different levels of output, but just putting that time, putting a limit on how long it's going to take you to get something done, all of a sudden you become so much more productive rather than just sort of, a list of 20 things to do, which is so huge that you're not going to get any of those things done. But focus on 3 really key important things and then carve out specific chunks of time to do that. Generally, I find that for most people, it doesn't matter whatever level they're operating, if they're a CEO or a multinational, the same principle applies. There are going to be 3 key things that you absolutely need to do, people that you need to get back to, people that you're waiting to hear from that you need to move forward on, and the rest of the stuff you can either wait or you can delegate it. That's actually part of the third principle, the power of team.
Okay, that's number 3.
So the power of team is really, so we go back to athletes. We've got trainers, coaches, nutritionists, massage therapists, and so on. It's a team of people around us that are giving us tools, resources, and strategies so we can be better, faster, stronger. We need to embrace that mentality of a top, world-class athlete. If we're in the business world, we need to be able to make sure we're hiring the right people in our organization. And interestingly, I find that it's not just education at the skill level, but it's a person's attitudes and values, making sure we're hiring the right people so that we can actually delegate responsibility, free up some of our time. And on the home front, too, I find that looking at what are the things that don't give you joy, they take up excessive amounts of time, well, we can outsource them. We can get other people to do them. I have a client of mine, him and his wife, they both run their company, and they're both super busy, and they don't like to cook. Not their thing at all. And so they hired a young graduate chef who comes in once a week and prepares fresh meals based on ingredients they love, comes in and cooks them, does the grocery shopping, cleans up afterwards. And so that for them is such a saving grace because it allows them to use that time for each other or for family or for other things that they value.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Getting a team of people to help out, especially the things you don't want to do, right?
Right, athletes do that. Business, I encourage more people to do that, to build that championship team around them. And I think everyone in wherever they are in their life can start to build that team, that support network around them of people that can support them in getting to where they want to go.
These 3 are really good. I like these. And so you train your people to incorporate these 3 tips, right, into whatever they're doing?
And we go into a lot more detail, go into, obviously whatever their situation is in business or, whatever their training goals are. I'll go in and devise a custom-made plan for them that actually works for their schedule and their actual environment. But that's the essence of it, is really, really diving deep into things that really help them to get them performing at a higher level.